Welcome to the Sweep Baseball Podcast, where we talk about all the top stories from the past week in college baseball, starting with the number one overall point I want to make. The SEC no longer looks like it's just top heavy. The gap from the top teams really seems to have condensed down a lot closer to those middle of the pack SEC teams from what we saw the past week. A lot of upsets on the road, at home. Didn't seem like it really mattered. Besides Texas doing their job as per usual, doesn't seem like they are beatable right now. But we'll see after next week. But the rest of the way, a lot of the top dogs did seem to struggle. We're looking at Arkansas, Tennessee, Georgia, all having bad weeks. Some at home, some on the road. Yeah, really a really tough week overall for those what seemed like some of the best teams in the country and definitely in the SEC.
Yeah, it seemed like before we just had a bunch of teams at the top there, top five. I mean, I think they had like six of the top 10 at some point. Still a lot in there, but you're right. Besides Texas, there's some separation there. And, before that, it seemed like we had a big gap before like some fringe top 25 teams. But now we have Vandy, Auburn, Ole Miss, Alabama kind of in the middle there of the top 25. Alabama more towards the tail end there. But yeah, kind of just starting to spread itself out there, and yeah, not really sure what to make of a lot of these teams necessarily outside of Texas. I feel like I still have a lot of confidence in those next couple teams, but we have seen them definitely have some weaknesses recently.
Yeah, the past few weeks, those other teams besides Texas have definitely had their struggles, but you never know. It seems like the SEC, the schedule is just built for teams to have those struggles and then come out on the other end ready for the postseason and make Omaha. A lot of these teams seem to go with the hot, cold, hot strategy where there is that little down period where the team seems to really be struggling, but then they pick up super late and obviously make huge runs to Omaha and potentially win the whole thing, like we've seen previously with some maybe not top tier SEC teams from previous seasons. At least in the regular season, didn't seem like they were the best of the best, but then making those tournament runs like Mississippi State, Ole Miss of the past few years, and Florida, even though they didn't win the thing, just having that kind of similar resume of how the season went for them. It's an interesting struggle, but we haven't really seen it out of those like top teams the past few years. So maybe this is the turnaround where now we're seeing the top teams struggle and they'll be able to wind things back in the right direction come postseason time.
Yeah, I mean, I think we know at least the top chunk of the SEC all have the talent to do it, make it to Omaha, win the whole thing. The talent's there. It's just really a matter of clicking and getting in a rhythm and having that cohesion as a team to have that winning mentality and be able to pull through those tough spots. So a lot of learning moments recently for those teams, and we'll see if they're able to put it together on this home stretch here with, I think it's 4 weeks left in the regular season.
Yeah, I think looking at especially some of those SEC teams that maybe we haven't been as high on recently. We did drop out Vanderbilt last week just for them to jump straight back in because of that sweep versus Georgia. They were number 5 at the time, and Georgia dropping back to that 10 spot now in our rankings. But yeah, Vanderbilt jumping all the way up to 16 because, maybe they weren't really warranted for dropping out. It seemed like they were in that 26 spot because Louisville and them were pretty much in the exact same position where they had a super tough schedule coming up. They had a little bit of struggles recently, so wanted to drop them back. Louisville just ended up being in that 25 spot, and yeah, now that they're completely out because of their series at Clemson, even though it was super competitive, being at 25 and losing a weekend series will most likely see you drop out there, and that did happen in Vanderbilt, jumping straight back into potentially a top 15 spot if they can continue to work their magic. But we'll see. Their schedule is still extremely tough, but at least they've bought themselves some time in the top 25 with that super impressive sweep at home.
Yeah, I mean, Vandy, impressive week against Georgia, up to 16, like you said. Louisville dropping out, and yeah, a close week with Clemson. And I think those two teams now being over 10 spots apart just really shows how close the back end of the rankings is between all these teams because Vandy and Louisville were in a very similar position last week. Louisville really didn't have a bad week this past week, but now they're separated by over 10 spots. And I really just think outside of the top couple teams in the country, there's a lot of, yeah, I mean, you could mix things a bunch of different ways, and it's really hard for teams to separate themselves right now. Everyone's had bad moments up to this point, and it's really just a week to week thing now.
Yeah, speaking of bad moments, we'll stay in the SEC for a little bit longer. I want to talk about Alabama. Somehow still in the top 25. They put together a pretty impressive resume overall, but the past like 5 weeks they've lost I think 4 SEC series. It's just a really interesting case because they have faced super tough competition and they've looked decent doing it, but just haven't really racked up the wins to, I don't know, really prove that they are a top team. And we'll see. They definitely have the potential to turn things around. Obviously, we still have them ranked here, but this is really their last chance for probably a while. If they mess around here and lose another series, they probably will be out for a while just because they have had such a weird stretch. Even though they've been playing decent, it just they have not been hitting their potential and have faced really tough competition. So yeah, they're still in for now, but definitely an interesting case where it helps just to be in the SEC and playing tough competition week in week out. You're gonna get a little benefit of the doubt because of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think 99% of the time, if a team loses four out of their last five series, you're not going to see them in the rankings. But the thing Alabama's done well is they've won pretty much every game outside of conference play. They've only dropped one game, and that was earlier in the year. They're winning all their midweeks, and they haven't been swept yet. So all these series losses are pretty much 2 in 2 weeks. It doesn't look as bad, even if they're dropping the series. And especially when you're playing the schedule that the SEC has, they're losing a series to a highly ranked team, but picking up the midweek win, a 2 in 2 week with a ranked series loss just doesn't look that bad. But, at some point you do have to win weekends as well. So we'll see if they're able to put that together. Certainly should this weekend with Missouri coming up. That should be three free wins if we have learned anything this year. But yeah, we'll see how they look against some better competition throughout the year.
There should be 3 run rule wins if they want to really prove something. We've seen that a lot. If you're not run ruling Missouri, then you're probably doing something wrong as an SEC team. It seems like at this point, especially if you're in the top 25. We just saw Oklahoma absolutely handle them on the road, and Oklahoma needed that. They really needed that at that point. It's racking up those wins. They were struggling a little bit, at least stalling in the conference and just getting those easy weekend to reset there. They had a tough midweek too at Oklahoma State, which they were able to win. So impressive stuff from that at least. And then racking up those runs and being able to turn things around. It looked like Missouri might have something going on that first game, and then the switch flipped, and it was no looking back for the rest of the series, and Oklahoma really did the job there. But I want to turn my attention to one of the upsets that happened early, where I guess in the top 10 with Arkansas getting beat by Texas A&M. Not sure if you can really consider this an upset now, with Texas A&M maybe being the hottest, definitely one of the hottest teams in the country. Seems like they're finally hitting their stride offensively, turning things around. Just took most of the season to do it. But now they are really, really interesting in how things will play out. At this point, it's going to be tough luck for them to be able to host, but you do not want them as your 2 seed in the regional. That is going to be really tough for whoever gets them. And yeah, A&M just looking like the team that they should have been to start the year. And we'll talk a little bit later with the upcoming matchup coming out. But yeah, just wanted to touch on that a little bit here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a crazy turnaround, and I think we all knew it was possible there, and especially like them and Virginia, we knew one of those teams would probably figure it out. It looks like A&M certainly has. 2 of the last 3 weekends taking down teams that were number 1 in recent weeks, and now they get another one against number 1 this upcoming week. Should be interesting, and yeah, I mean, it's really hard to doubt them at this point.
Yep, definitely. And now just looking at some other teams in the top 25, I want to mention NC State joining us here at 23. First time in a while since like week 2, I think they were in the top 25. They had that really brutal start to the season, but finally turning things around now at 27-12. Just got the sweep on the road at Cal. Good stuff there. They look like a very competent squad. Cal, they're not the best team, but we saw them put some work on some other ACC opponents, especially with that long travel that NC State would have to do to get there. Being able to get the sweep there, really impressive stuff. A win for the series might have still seen them jump into the top 25 here, but definitely getting that sweep puts them solidly in our top 25.
Yeah, it feels like we've had a lot of ACC teams on the fringe there, and finally they make their way in after kind of a roller coaster of a season so far. Another team moving big down there is Georgia Tech, dropping all the way to the 25 spot. Georgia Tech was looking very good up until this last week, but 0-4 week, tough midweek to Georgia, and then getting swept at Miami, which was a bit of a confusing one. Didn't see that coming whatsoever, and yeah, it kind of seems like things just snowballed that week once they lost the game to Georgia, and the first game Miami just couldn't get it going throughout the weekend.
Yeah, and we're finally getting to that point of the season where you can start to think about postseason, how teams are shaping up. The RPI is finally at a spot where it seems somewhat reliable now. And with Georgia Tech last week, it seems like they were in a very good spot to potentially be a host, maybe even a top 8 seed. And now with this 0-4 week against what was pretty decent competition, Miami was looking not great for most of the season, but now looking at them, they're in a spot where they could make the tournament now, especially with that impressive series sweep there. Miami is now a team that has put themselves right into contention for a spot in the tournament if they can keep that up and remain consistent the rest of the way. Obviously, pretty far out from being a top 25 team for the time being, but who knows if they're able to stay consistent, they could see themselves come in a few weeks if they have the chance.
Yeah, definitely possible. Yeah, it's another one of those programs that we just haven't really heard much of throughout the year. But yeah, putting things together at a right time. And like you mentioned, Georgia Tech kind of in a tough spot. I definitely think I would have had them pinned as a top 8 seed going into last week. And now the RPI dropped, I think, down to the mid 20s or so. Still have a good record in the ACC, even after getting swept there, but going to need to put things back together and get that RPI a little higher to get back in, certifying or solidifying the hosting spot.
Yeah, for sure. And the last team I want to mention in our top 25 is UC Irvine, only jumping up a few spots from last week, but good series sweep against Hawaii here. Super impressive stuff. We can actually talk about our player of the week. Similar to a few weeks ago, not necessarily one specific player, but just overall, UC Irvine's pitching was ridiculous, getting 2 complete game shutouts, and the one game where that didn't happen, they only gave up 1 run. So overall, the pitching was phenomenal, especially against a relatively decent competition. Hawaii looked like a team that, early in the season, you never know, could have put themselves in a position to host. Everybody wanted that to happen. That would have been a great regional, at least to go to. The stadium's great. The fans show up for it, and if that was potentially on the cards, that would have been crazy to see. Especially having teams travel there would have been very interesting logistically as well. But now it seems like Hawaii is pretty solidly out of contention for hosting, and who knows if they can even make the tournament. Definitely on the downward spiral for the time being, but UC Irvine taking complete advantage of that and only giving up 1 run on the weekend and 2 complete game shutouts is just ridiculous stuff for that staff.
Yeah, I mean, that was a impressive week altogether for the pitching staff. And I think UC Irvine's a really well rounded team, but I think throughout the season, I would say their strength has lied a little more on the offensive side of things. So, kind of a surprise from the pitching staff to put together that solid of a performance, especially against a team like Hawaii. So, kind of came out of nowhere. Wasn't expecting the pitching staff to perform that well. And yeah, very impressive to get the 2 complete game shutouts.
Yep. Any other teams in the top 25 you want to mention before we talk about the teams right on the outside?
No, I think we got it.
Sweet. Well, we can talk about teams that dropped out. TCU and Louisville. Mentioned Louisville earlier. They did go 2-2 against ranked teams, so really not a bad week. Just being right on the fringe there, didn't have much leeway there, but they have the opportunity to jump back in. Have a tough schedule going forward, but definitely can jump back in anytime if they're able to flip the card. But TCU going 1-3 against DBU, getting the loss midweek, and then going to UCF. That was a really tough one. You expect a series win here, and for that not to happen, and being a team that recently came back into the top 25 here, just didn't have a ton of room to maneuver, but still right on the outside looking in now. Definitely a solid squad overall. Just can't really have those blunders, especially against pretty mediocre conference opponents.
Yeah, and TCU sitting right outside the top 16 in RPI right now too. So, tough to have a slip up like that. You want to lock back in and take care of those series you should be winning, because if they're able to do that, probably in a hosting spot. Yeah, I would think if they're able to win 3 of their last 4 series, they're probably hosting. So, can't really afford any more slip ups like that.
Yep, definitely. Uh, Another team to mention, Southern Miss, do it every week. At least they didn't go 2-2 this past week. Thought it might be a very possible option for that to happen, considering they were facing decent competition going to Southeast Louisiana and then Georgia State. But getting 3-1 out of those games, good stuff. Right on the outside looking in. If they can put together another solid week where they rack up at most one loss, then they could jump in the top 25. Definitely right on the outside, like we've been talking about for seems like forever at this point.
Yeah, they're just always on the outside looking in. I feel like they're our permanent 25 through 30 spot there. Um, yeah, there's just not too many big series coming up for them until the last weekend of the regular season. That's when they play Troy. So I feel like that'll kind of be the prove it series for them. Um, yeah, and no midweek that week, so can't have a 2-2 week. So there'll be a lot lying on that last weekend. But yeah, certainly they'll be in our 25 through 30 up until then.
Yep, for sure. And staying in the mid majors, we have Cal Poly last week, pretty much 1 week out from being a top 25 team if they were able to win that series at UCSB. That didn't happen. Still went 2-2 on the week, kind of what you'd expect considering the respect most people have for UC Santa Barbara, and now they have UC Irvine going to their stadium, so still have the opportunity to put some respect on their name and potentially jump into the top 25 if they're able to put together good results here. But definitely took a hit there the past week.
Yeah, I mean, the Big West is just shaping up to be a pretty competitive conference this year. Feels like recent years there's only been 1 or 2 good teams in the conference, but this year it feels like there's 4 or 5 solid clubs there, and we're kind of seeing them start to beat up on each other a little bit. I feel like Cal Poly and UCSB are both kind of in this outside looking in area, with UCSB kind of heating up as of late. But the RPI is in a rough spot for them. So really fringe if they're even making the tournament if the season ended right now. But both of those teams are definitely solid clubs.
Yeah, and looking at some other teams, I think McNeese maybe has an opportunity. I think in at least one poll they made the top 25, which was a bit surprising to me considering they did go 2-2 the past week and lost their only game against a good team, which was LSU on the road. Obviously, don't really expect them to win that game, but midweeks you never know what can happen there. Definitely see upsets for some teams every single week. So if McNeese is able to at least remain consistent, they only have 7 losses, which is why they're slowly creeping their way into our conversation here. But they haven't been the most impressive overall, just haven't really lost many games. So definitely, if they're able to continue to do that, could jump in like we saw with Western Kentucky a few weeks ago.
Yeah, hard to keep teams out that keep winning, and yeah, saw it with Western Kentucky. Stayed in even after a 2-2 week. So if you just get those wins up there, at some point we gotta bring you in. So we'll see if McNeese can keep it up.
Yeah, now looking at teams who had super impressive weeks that are creeping back in the conversation, I think you can talk about Texas A&M. Definitely touch on that later when we're talking about upcoming series. But yeah, getting a series win at Arkansas the second straight week where they faced a top 10 team and won that series. Super impressive. Also won their midweek, which they weren't really doing in the early part of the season. So able to consistently get those wins in without many losses is really good at this point in the season where they weren't able to do that at the start. Kansas 4-0 week, sweeping Kansas State. Really good stuff there. They did drop back last week because they lost their series, but able to really flip the script here and sweep a rival is very impressive. So putting themselves right back into the conversation. And similarly with Iowa, a team that hasn't really faced tough competition for most of the year, finally are able to do that, at least RPI wise, with going to Michigan here and getting that sweep, jumping their RPI just a ridiculous amount, over 30 spots, I believe, in the past week. So able to do that puts them in contention to just getting in the tournament without having to do anything crazy because they were in the 90s prior to the past week. And yeah, that just shows the level of competition they had faced. But leading the conference, the Big Ten, by quite a margin at this point. So they'd really have to crumble to lose that lead there. But haven't faced the toughest competition throughout the season.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see how Texas A&M fares down this tough stretch at the end here. Big week coming up against Texas. If they somehow pull off this weekend as well, I feel like you're going to see them fly up the rankings. Still on the outside looking in all the polls, I think. But if you have 3 weekends in a row of taking down a team that was number 1 in recent weeks, you're going to see them fly up the rankings. And yeah, I just can't wait for this weekend to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we put together a power rankings at this point, they might even creep into the top 10 at this point if we're just not looking at their overall resume and just recent history. They've definitely been one of the hottest teams. We'll definitely address the series coming up in a bit, but any other teams you want to mention on the outside looking in?
No, not many. A couple I have pinned, Duke and Kentucky, but both don't have great records. They're just kind of starting to creep into the conversation, probably more in that 30 to 35 range or 30 to 40, and need to put together another good weekend or two. But those are 2 teams that have picked up some solid wins recently and could be in the conversation soon.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like Kentucky always has a pretty established just way of playing, style of play that they just hone in on. And late in the season, it seems pretty disruptive, at least in the SEC, able to just be a scrappy bunch of guys and able to rack up wins against teams that have a lot more talent than them, but just aren't playing the brand of baseball that Kentucky does. And because of that, they're able to get wins in situations where they're outclassed, at least just based off of talent, and definitely not coaching and ability over in the long run, at least. But yeah, this Kentucky team, if they're able to continue to do that, I mean, we had them preseason top 25 while other places didn't. Definitely just based off of the history of what we saw last year and the way that they were coached, even, in the SEC, Kentucky typically not a team that you're seeing at the top, and they don't have the top talent, but they're able to really turn things up late and make deep runs, and yeah, just be a solid, consistent team, just the way they play baseball, and not typical for an SEC team where it's mostly just power on power. Kentucky plays with a decent amount of finesse and stolen bases and just playing the game the right way in that sense. But yeah, now we can jump into our top play of the week.
Flight out to center again. Ford has to go a long way back for this. This ball's carrying. Oh my goodness! What a catch by Ford! Channeling his inner Willie Mays for out number 1. Goodness gracious!
So here we had Cincinnati's Donovan Ford with the Willie Mays-esque catch over the shoulder while sprinting full speed to the warning track. Mascot getting in the way of the shot a little bit, but overall, super impressive stuff. There were a decent number of home run robberies, but I think this play early in the week just stood out a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think we also just loved the mascot, getting in the way and at the beginning. Glad he didn't block the whole shot, but not sure what he was doing with the cameraman there. But Yeah, just an incredible catch, full sprint over his head, over his back like that. So yeah, super impressive clip altogether.
Yeah, for sure. And now we can get into our series predictions from the past weekend. Second straight week, we just had a pretty much perfect week. Can't do any better, at least cumulatively. Second straight, we both went 4-1. The only losses we racked up were on series we disagreed upon, those being Cal Poly at UCSB and Kansas State at Kansas. The other series, Louisville at Clemson, UCLA at Oregon, and Auburn at Texas, all went the right direction for us. So now we're sitting very pretty, both at 25 and 15. Super competitive, tight race here. Yeah, definitely going down the home stretch now. We'll pick some amazing series coming up. Definitely have some really big ones, especially rivalry wise. Starting with A&M going to number one Texas, number one versus the number one preseason team. Schlossnagle going back to his old club. I mean, I guess it is at home for Texas, so unfortunately we're not getting the heated fan base there. That would be a crazy one to watch if the roles were reversed and it was at A&M. But still, there will be some hostility. I feel like there will definitely be a lot of A&M fans showing up for this, no matter what. But probably the two hottest teams in the country at this point. There's just so many storylines. Maybe the most hyped series, at least for me personally, this season so far. Really should be an interesting one, and I expect a lot of fireworks between the teams.
Yeah, I mean, this matchup is certainly a 10 out of 10, and like you said, just really wish it was at A&M. Feel like that would just be a cinematic masterpiece right there. If you had the preseason number one against the number one now, the coaching change and everything. It's just the script is perfect, and yeah, can't wait for that series this weekend. We love a rivalry, and yeah, we're gonna love the intensity. Sure, things will get a little chippy at some point, and can't wait to see it.
Yeah, definitely. And staying in that rivalry realm, we have number 3 Oregon State going to number 13 Oregon. Both teams haven't looked the best pitching wise recently, even against bad competition that Oregon State faced last week. Even though they were able to get the sweep, a lot of runs were put up against them and made it very tight series against a very mediocre opponent. And then Oregon, it always seems like one of their games is an absolute blowout going in the other direction, and then they're able to kind of reel things back in and still win series. But having that ugly loss on the resume still just brings your eyes to that attention, and it should be an interesting series. I expect a lot of runs, and because of that, it's probably going to be an extremely low scoring series with a pitcher's duel every single day. But it should be exciting no matter what. The fans will definitely show up for that one.
Yeah, I mean another big rivalry series, and both teams have been very good as of late, last couple of years, and yeah, both teams struggling on the pitching side right now, especially in the bullpen. It seems like we've seen Oregon blow some games late, and like you mentioned, we've seen Oregon State, even though they've been winning some games, giving up a lot of runs as well, and so yeah, it'll probably be low scoring since it doesn't go the way we want it to. But yeah, should be a fun one, and yeah, I mean a lot on the line there. Oregon State trying to lock in a top 8 seed, hosting in general, and that would be pretty impressive as a independent this year, especially locking in top 8. And then Oregon, the RPI is not great right now. If they're able to win 3 of these, they play a midweek too. If they're able to win 3 of the 4, probably lock in that postseason spot, potentially get themselves closer to hosting competition. They have the ranking, but not the RPI. Yeah, should be a fun one overall.
Yep, for sure. Now going back to the SEC, we have number 7 Tennessee going to number 8 LSU. Both teams who are at the very top of the rankings for a few weeks have had their struggles recently, but like we mentioned previously, could go with the hot, cold, hot method, where these teams are just sleeping giants once they're able to turn things around. I expect both these teams to figure it out at some point. I don't think they've really struggled mightily, just have had a few off weeks, but haven't had any real big concerns for these teams. But this series will definitely be a fun one to watch, and yeah, should be a good test of which team is turning things around a little bit quicker.
Yeah, I mean, both of these teams are extremely talented and capable. Wouldn't be surprised if both teams make Omaha. I would be pretty shocked if neither of them did. Feel like at least one of them will, and so I feel like this series here could be a good indicator of who's turning it around and who's starting to get on that second hot stretch, like you said.
Yep, definitely. And now going to number 15, UC Irvine at Cal Poly. Cal Poly right on the outside looking in of the rankings. UC Irvine solidifying their spot the past few weeks, especially with that sweep versus Hawaii. Really impressive stuff. Yeah, they've had a relatively difficult schedule down the stretch, and so has Cal Poly the past few weeks. Have faced some of the best teams in the conference. So this is, well, a few weeks ago seemed like the top matchup where these two teams were fighting for the conference lead. UC Irvine at least is a lot more established overall resume wise, but definitely still could have very big implications for conference standings.
Yeah, definitely a big one, and we'll see if Cal Poly, if they're able to win this one, might creep into the top 25 here. But it seems like we've just had the Big West kind of beating up on each other, and UC Irvine hanging in there in the top 15 or so. So we'll see what happens, but definitely big implications here. Feels like a lot on the line for UC Irvine hosting here as well.
Yep, definitely. And now, once again, dipping into the barrel of the SEC, we have number 16 Vanderbilt going to number 18 Ole Miss. Vanderbilt jumping up the rankings spectacularly this past week. They were out of it, and with that sweep of Georgia, super impressive stuff. They have a lot of momentum now. We'll see if it carries to the road. Their pitching was phenomenal against Georgia. Georgia not able to put up the runs they're used to seeing. So if Vanderbilt's able to replicate that against a very solid Ole Miss squad, we could see a very solid run here. Vandy's RPI, I believe, is at like number 3 right now, which doesn't really match up with where they sit in our standings at least. But I guess overall their resume speaks for itself at this point, and if they're able to continue and follow through with a series win at Ole Miss would be really impressive here. And I mean, definitely will make them jump pretty high into our rankings as well, unfortunately, for the certified Vandy hater here.
Yeah, both of these teams have creeped close to the top 10 for us. I think both have cracked just the back end of the top 10. And yeah, both teams kind of sitting in the middle of the top 25 now. This will be a big one to see if they're able to get closer towards the top end of things. Could solidify hosting for either one of them. Vandy, like you said, already has the RPI, so maybe it's not a concern for them right now. But Ole Miss coming off a bad series loss at South Carolina was kind of a surprising one. We'll see if they're able to right the ship and at least, kind of play the brand of baseball we're expecting from them.
Yeah, I had a feeling before that series started that South Carolina was gonna able to take it there. I didn't write it down anywhere, unfortunately. Wasn't able to cash anything. But I mean, I think last week in general, the SEC saw a lot of upsets, so maybe it wasn't that crazy of a prediction because of that. But I had a gut feeling there. But this Ole Miss squad looking for revenge here and have the opportunity against a very solid Vandy team that doesn't necessarily have the craziest offense, but the pitching is typical for Vanderbilt, and the offense definitely better than we've seen at least last year. But last series that I want to look in on is number 2 Clemson at number 23 NC State. NC State just jumping into the rankings now. Clemson kind of solidifying themselves as the number 2 team in the nation right now, but have a tough one on the road against a very hot NC State squad, finally able to get back into the top 25 after that atrocious start to the season. And Clemson now facing another back end of the top 25 team here. I saw it with Louisville last week where they were able to get the job done. It was definitely a very tight series, but it seems like this year Clemson has got the DNA to win tight games. Cardiac Clemson seems to be the brand that they're just going to rely on, and if they're close, I trust Clemson to be able to pull through and win this series.
Yeah, I mean, Clemson's just finding a way to win. Seems like every single weekend. Haven't dropped a weekend series yet. Super impressive from them, and they have back-to-back ranked series on the road now. So if they're able to get through these next 2 weeks, might end the season without dropping a weekend. Would be super impressive if they're able to pull that off. And yeah, like you mentioned, just kind of have that winning DNA. Lucas Malstead's got 15 saves on the year. Pretty insane at this point in the season. And yeah, I think that just speaks to the type of team Clemson is, and I feel like we've seen it the last couple of years. They just have that winning identity. They haven't necessarily put it all together in the postseason. Kind of just had a bad run running into Tennessee and Florida, running into some hot SEC teams, and I'm excited to see if they're able to put it together in the postseason this year.
Yeah, it seems like this is the make or break year. Cam Carnerella's most likely his last year playing at Clemson, looking to be a high draft pick overall. And so if he can't get it done this year, I don't know who could. It seems like it's destiny at this point with what they've been putting together. Even preseason, people were saying that this Clemson team has just been like one out away multiple times of making it to the College World Series. And now, Cam Canarella leading the way fully junior year. I expect nothing less of just being able to come out with so many close wins, and that helps out in the postseason when things get tight and being able to make comebacks and stuff like that. So should be definitely an interesting series here, and down the stretch, this Clemson team just looking all the right type of good all over the place. But any other series you want to mention here?
The only other one I'll mention is Oklahoma at Georgia. Pretty big matchup in kind of that tier 2 right now. Both teams at the back end of the top 10 looking to get into the top 10 there. And so big series here. Both these teams have had some struggles as of late, but have also had impressive series wins as well. And so just looking to see what they put together at the end of the season here, and should be a fun competitive one.
Yeah, definitely. Might even have to predict that series, but we will have our predictions out right before everything starts on Thursday. And yeah, should be a very fun weekend of college baseball, especially with those rivalries coming up. We'll be front and center there on I believe some of the major networks. So yeah, should be good viewing, and hope everybody enjoyed this podcast. We'll check in next week on Tuesday or Wednesday for the next edition of the Sweep Baseball Podcast. Peace.